Hello and welcome everyone to this panel about private networks, where we will be discussing some of the past mistakes that have been made in the market, some of the lessons learned, some of the opportunities that are emerging in this new market that is private LTE and private 5G networks. So I'm Pablo Tomasi. I'm a principal analyst covering private networks at Omdia, and I have the pleasure to be the host moderating this panel. We're very lucky today because we have an excellent set of panelists. And before we start deep diving on the questions, I'd like to ask our panelists to very quickly introduce themselves, their company, and maybe some interesting facts they have something in their pocket. So let's have this quick lightning round of introduction, and maybe let's get started with Sebastian.
Sure. Thank you, Pablo. My name is Sebastian Robic. I'm with Digital Europe. I'm leading the Smart Systems and Services Proof of Concept team, mainly focusing on the SBA vision, so service-based architecture within the 5G, beyond 5G space. And we are working closely with a lot of European projects, European partners, and one of the projects is Fudge 5G, and that is how we actually entered the non-private network domain, and we are basically pushing the evolved SBA vision within NPNs. And that's what I'm representing today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Antje?
Yes. Hey there, I'm Antje Williams. I'm responsible for 5G campus networks within Deutsche Telekom, which means in our case that it would include the network in our footprint, meaning Germany and some European countries plus the US, and also the edge component on the campus network itself, plus services.
Great. Chris?
Thanks, Pablo. Chris Allen. I'm a product manager from Vodafone Business, responsible for private networks in Vodafone. We're selling private networks across Europe and beyond. I've been in Vodafone for 20 years, working on various different mobile, fixed, security, cloud products over those years, but only for the last 2 years on private networks.
Okay, and Alon?
Hi, Pablo. Thank you, and thank you, everyone. My name is Alon Arnon. I'm working for Azox. Actually, it's a cloud-native vRAN solution, and we are providing for a 5G network focusing on Industry 4.0. I'm the VP Sales and Germany country manager. Actually, we're establishing a new branch now in Germany to create a blueprint of industry solutions together with local partners.
Okay, fantastic. And Alon, let's continue with you, and let's deep dive into this subject. So, first question: this is a very hype market. Everyone wants to talk about private networks, about private 5G. Everyone wants sort of a piece of the pie, so to speak. So the first question that I have is pretty straightforward. Is the market delivering on the hype that has been generated so far? And is there any country or industry that you see of being particularly relevant for this market?
Excellent question. I don't think there is a definitive answer in this one, because I think it's varies between the different advanced industries. So, for example, I see in Germany the automotive industry highly advanced. They're already establishing a very clear requirement for ultra reliability and low latency in the matter of 5G, and they already have established the ideas of locations and real-time requirement, as opposed to industries where I think there is a bit of a hype message. So there I believe that we try to convince them as technology provider and that their problem is a 5G related problem. And I think so we start to convince them that they need this low latency, but in fact most of them are in the visibility phase, so just trying to see if the machine is up and running. So yes and no, depends on the industry, and I think the German market and US market are pretty advanced.
Okay, fair point, and open up to the rest of the panelists. Do you also see this sort of yes and no type of answer in terms of hype and in terms of industry need? And maybe Chris, let's start with you.
Yes, I mean, as I said in my intro, I've been involved in private networks for the last 2 years, and it was very niche at the beginning of that period, and there has been a lot of hype. You're right. I think now, though, I've seen a huge increase in demand over those 2 years. You know, real lots of interest now in private networks across the whole of Europe. So we've as Vodafone, we've got 13 European markets. We're selling MPN private networks in all of those markets, and beyond. You know, Africa, Asia Pac. There's a huge demand now for private networks. In terms of the sectors, manufacturing is definitely the big one. So that's by a long way, I think, where the biggest demand is coming from manufacturing, driven by Industry 4.0 in the vast majority of cases. Followed closely probably by transport and logistics. So ports, airports, warehouses, distribution centres, those kind of environments. And then the energy sector, I think, is the next big one. So the traditional oil and gas companies, but more and more the renewables. So wind farms, offshore, solar. You know, they're all looking at private networks to manage their estate.
And you know, it's actually we heard, you know, Germany, and I heard manufacturers. So Antje, seems that, you know, the German market is sort of the sweet spot for private networks. Is it really kicking in this market in Germany and across the rest of your footprint?
Yes, I believe there's truly a strong push from the German industry, maybe also due to the fact that we still surprisingly have a lot of production manufacturing spots in Germany. So it's the automotive industry themselves, but it's also those that deliver to the automotive. I mean, it's sometimes incredible how Germany depends on this type of industry. But the players in this industry for the production for the automotive industry, they are a lot of times with certain aspects, they're global players. So basically, but the headquarters are often in Germany, and they bring these requirements also outside of Germany. And of course, that is for all telecommunication operators. So far, it was always a challenge to offer global solutions. You can do that quite easy with a platform. With the network, it becomes extremely interesting. And then you have to see where you have your footprint, where you have alliances, right? Then you find countries where you can say, okay, we have a similar system wherever in Switzerland, and we can offer that as well. So that is something the request lands by us. We have in Germany the situation that there is a dedicated spectrum. The UK has it as well. Sweden has it, but by far not every country. So it's a few countries so far that have solid and good spectrum for the industry, right? So in Germany, it's 100 megahertz and it's on 3.7, so prime time spectrum, basically given for free to the industry. And that is a challenge, but the interesting part for me is, and that's a little bit the development, what we see, I think that's what also, what Chris meant, it's like, you know, in the beginning, you had a lot of research institutes and so on trying out, and Fraunhofer and whatever in university. And now you see it's picking up. But we have to consider, I mean, we as an industry might have 10 years rotation with new technologies. If you look at the solid productions place, they have 30. Yeah. So what is totally unrealistic is, from my point of view, to think that within whatever 2-3 years, the whole world gonna have 5G. And also unrealistic, from my point of view, is 5G takes it all. Yeah, the winner takes it all. Even if 5G is better in certain circumstances for certain applications, and especially everywhere you need mobility and so, it has a strong right to play, but probably not on every application. And if I'm the production owner and everything runs well, I will only be carefully use new technology in my environment. And that's what we're going to see. We're going to see a mixture of technologies. And there's no reason why we shouldn't also offer a mixture, right? Why shouldn't we have fixed? We will have fixed for a long time for the huge machines that don't never ever move anyway. So you will see that. You will see Wi-Fi and you will see 5G. And at the end, I think the combination counts. And yes,
yeah, I think that you're touching on some great points. I mean, it's not going to be the flip or switch. It's going to take time and it's going to be fragmented. Now, before I loop in Sebastian, can I just ask Gerard to log out of the call, because I believe that the view that the audience will have will be a little bit distorted if there is another non-speaking panelist. Okay, fantastic. I see you're leaving. So Sebastian, if you want to touch on the hype of the market versus reality, great. And at the same time, I would like to start moving along the conversation. And so the follow-up question would be, we're talking about private 5G, but is this the private 5G that, we have talked about for a long time? So is that 1 millisecond latency really there? Are all those promises already met? Or, we're still missing some bits and pieces and there's still some proof that needs to be made?
Yeah, so let me tackle this the question before and the question now from with the precursor. So I'm very much involved in release 18 now, study items, really pushing the ideas of, in particular, the system architecture, SE1, SE2, SE6 to the next levels, essentially. So whatever I say, I do understand that the current industry looks release 15, release 16 implementations, but we are very much as in the digital, as you might all aware, very much standardization oriented. Now, when it comes to this 1 millisecond and the whole non-public networks area, so we have to see NPNs are mainly for the verticals. Finally getting the verticals into the telecom space, because what we have at the moment is still the case that NPNs are offered by the operators. There will be from the 5G PBP, in the 5G IA, there will be a white paper coming out soon, to which we've also, as Fudge, as well as in the digital, we have contributed quite a lot. And there's a certain vision that comes out of NPNs, and SBA plays a key role in there. So what we have learned from the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Googles is demand, and you scale based on demand. The telco world cannot do that. So a bit like what 3G tried to do, 4G has finally done it. 5G introduced SBA. Personally, I'm sorry, we need to 6G. We need to take the next step because the cloud native part, a proper service-oriented architecture and services, 5G cores that scale on demand, we are not there yet. So there's a lot of things. And for the verticals, latency is not the key issue. I mean, what service really needs 1 millisecond? I'm telling you, a proper video stream, VR, needs a proper downstream link with a continuous bandwidth stream. The jitter should be low. The packet loss should be constant, and as long as you have that, you have a great VR use case. Machine to machine, certainly human interaction, haptic touch, those type of application, they need lower latencies. But what you're actually asking for is for the verticals to enter the telco space. And if I put up use cases like the little bakery chain wants to have a 5G network in their bakery, do they need like session management, charging? No, they don't. And that is where NPN and SBA and the new vision comes into play, that you can actually offer something like a Wi-Fi X-Point on Amazon. The bakery buys a 5G base station. Everything else just software service. You plug and play and you choose and pick and choose. And you build your system based on what you want. Could be in the cloud, could be local. You have a server, you have IT, you have no IT. So this is a bit we have a lot of work ahead. But I think really NPNs and private networks, how it started was great. As Chris mentioned, and also Antje and also Alan touched upon that, the current industries are clear. They are the big industry 4.0, manufacturing, car industry. But the actual verticals we are after as the telco world is the big operators might not be the one that offer the 6G NPNs. It is some smaller that you just offer. You just downsize your core to a very particular use case, and that is what you serve. You don't have to serve all the use cases. So that's my 2 cents.
And yeah, before getting the thoughts from the CSPs that we have here, maybe Alon, so what's your take? It's not about latency, right? There are other needs. It's about the use case, whatever the enterprise needs, and can the current private 5G deliver on what these industries want? Are we there yet? What's important that is brought by private 5G that hasn't been brought by other technologies?
So, first of all, I think I fully agree with Sebastian, right? If you put it on the table, there are 2 vectors to this discussion. And one vector is that if you go to 1 millisecond, there is a completely complex target operating model in order to even sustain such quality of service, right? So it's mean that when you scale, and now this 1 millisecond is a fundamental demand of the business functions in the factories, you need to support that. And I think there is a journey until we're able to really to build a scalable operating model to support it. And the other vector is actually the maturity of the industry, right? When you go in the scale of Industry 4.0 is, first of all, you get insight, you process this insight. 1 millisecond can give you amazing insights, right? But that is really specifically for companies that are investing. They need this demand in order to view this data to start putting some actionable or preventive care or whatever. Yeah. But I'm saying until we come to that point, advanced industry and getting to this resolution of the data and developing the target operating model that can really make sure that we are delivering that over time and not damaging any business, it's a journey. And I don't believe that, maybe few of us are in the game of getting into that point, but definitely we are not there. The demand is starting for this advanced industry because I see they picking up on the data and the power of having data. And I think like data is the new electricity in that sense. Very interesting to see how it grows.
And I like how you guys are framing this. It's a journey, right? So we mentioned there is quite a few steps that need to be taken, and I think this is something that I always say when I have a conversation with telcos or vendors. Like, it's not going to be a quick market. I mean, there is a great opportunity, but also it will take some time to be realized. But maybe now let's focus a little bit more on the CSP that I've been mentioning in a couple of times so far. And maybe, Antti, starting with you, can you just very quickly introduce to us your private networks offering, or maybe even more specifically, what's unique about the way that Deutsche Telekom provides private network or campus network in your case?
Yes, sure. So what our strongest belief is that we would need a different type of networks to serve the customer. We have probably the biggest hype in Germany at the moment all around private. We call it private only. So you have a core network and you have the RAN part included, totally separate from the public network. Often there comes up the question, but how can I now reach my employees outside of campus? That's very difficult with such structure. So what we also do for those customers that really want to have one really private part and want to secure their data, probably a lot of times it's more, and I totally agree whatever was said around latency, but it's the wish to manage their own data on campus by themselves. That's often the wish for the private network comes from that direction. And what we do is we offer these private only networks. A lot of times people want to do their first research steps on it. And plus they are forced actually by the regulator, if they ask for the frequency, they have to use it, right? If not, it's lost. So they are playing with these kind private only networks. Then for bigger deployments now, for instance, we had it at the fair in Hanover. It's called Deutsche Messe. So that's where the CeBIT used to be a long time. There is a combination of a private and a public network. That has the advantage that you can use voice. You can use your phones also outside of campus to reach people inside a campus, but you additionally have your private network. And then what we do at the moment on our normal public network is basically we offer quality of service for a campus owner. And for a lot of smaller companies, this is the right solution. They would not pay the money to build up an extra core network on site. Yeah, so if they ask for something, so we can guarantee a certain quality on their campus, that's what we do right now. And we believe what the big step is then when we have a proper network slicing regime over the entire network, that we can offer a network slice for a campus owner on existing infrastructure, that would make the right economics. Because what we also see is the willingness to pay in the market is not always huge, right? So you have to offer something that's economically acceptable, and that's what we do. So I would answer your question in a way. What we're trying to do is to offer several products to feed the customer needs.
Okay, and I have then a follow-up on this, but before that, Chris, let's get back to you. Same question. Can you introduce what you're doing and what's unique so that the audience can have a look at two different approaches or ideas of private networks?
Sure. So at Vodafone, we have 3 pillars to our proposition, if you like. And by the way, in Germany, we call it campus networks. That seems to be the name that's stuck in Germany, specifically campus networks. But in other countries, we call it private networks. So it's a terminology thing. 3 pillars. There's the connectivity, of course, first of all. And I totally recognize all of the things Antje said there about the different flavors of connectivity. There are customers who want a 100% dedicated infrastructure all to themselves, the core, the radio, everything, all on their premise. At the other end of the spectrum, if you like, there are 5G network slicing approaches now. So you can have a virtual slice on the public network through network slicing with 5G. And then we also do this concept of a kind of a hybrid model, if you like, which is a combination of private connectivity and public connectivity. So the connectivity is the first pillar. Alongside that, we offer edge compute. So mobile edge compute, MEC, is we love acronyms in this industry, don't we? MEC, mobile edge compute, so that can be embedded within your private network. So you can have an edge compute platform on-prem within your private network, or it can be in our public network, or both. If you have a hybrid network, then you might want a bit of both for users when they're in your campus and outside your campus. And then the third pillar, which is where we're trying to differentiate now, is on the end-to-end solutions, if you like, because customers more and more now are coming to us for solutions. They don't just want connectivity; they want a solution. You know, some customers still want connectivity only, but most customers come to us wanting a solution now. So we talk about digital solutions. That could be digital worker, digital asset, or digital site. So it's about connecting your people, your things, or your places. And we're developing a portfolio of solutions in all 3 of those categories, and we try to sell all of these things together. So the connectivity, the edge compute, and the end-to-end solution, all in a single proposition, underpinned, of course, with professional services around the design and build of the network, but even more importantly, a managed service around the operation of the network. So the build is important, of course. But it's all very well building a brilliant, fantastic network if you can't run it and operate it professionally. So we're offering a managed service where we will run the network for you entirely. The customer might want a completely outsourced model, and for a lot of manufacturing companies, energy companies, logistics companies, network operation is not their core business. It's not what they want to do. So they want to outsource it in a lot of cases. They don't want that kind of overhead. So they're very happy to outsource it to an organization like Vodafone, who's been running networks for 35 years. And it's very important that we can run the network for them. But if they want to manage elements of it themselves, they're very welcome to. So we can offer a customer interface, a management portal to manage the network, to as as greater or as lesser extent as the customer wants. Some customers don't want to touch it at all. They want to leave it all to us. Some customers want to get a bit hands-on and be able to activate and deactivate SIM cards themselves. And the management portal is customizable in the sense that it can be customized to your specific needs as a customer. So to a particular vertical or even to a particular customer.
And yeah, it's quite interesting, the management part, because some enterprises will want to manage networks, some enterprises will see CSPs as best partner, and some enterprises will not want to work with CSPs, I think. But maybe, Alon, from your point of view, when you're targeting the private networks market, what's your go-to-market strategy? Are you partnering with CSPs? Do you see them as sort of ideal partners? Are you partnered with system integrators, with specialists? How do you reach this opportunity?
So I think excellent question again. I'll break it into two parts, right? So the first part is the go-to-market strategy, and here I really connect to what Chris just said. Managing a network and a core and run, this is not something that enterprise would like to mess with. Yeah, few customer, yes, they want after connectivity, but you first of all have to build the value proposition around it, right? And that solution means that you have to prove some kind of economical value, but it's an ecosystem of partners that are coming in. If it's the AI vendor, if the one that provide the dongle that connect the camera or the 5G camera or the specific sensor or that is used on the EGV, it's a complexity. Even developing the dashboard and connect it to the customer or the enterprise IT environment, at the end of the day, it's an ecosystem and somebody need to anchor it. Yeah. And providing solution means that it's not just anchor and I say, okay, take all this package with you. You have to realize it. You have to work on principle. And that's mean I need to align the business model between all of them, not to make the financially complex on the customer. And I think Antje said that before. It's they're not willing to pay so much for connectivity. They still perceive it as connectivity. In order to build that value, that connectivity is a byproduct. It's an art. It's a lot of work that we need to do in order to deliver that solution to the end of the day of the customer. So on that mindset, we try to partner with, from one hand, with big player like Microsoft, VMware, to build like a solution that we can use their extension of Azure, for example, Azure Stack Edge, to create a really one-click approach. You order that from a marketplace, use case from a marketplace that embed the connectivity and the use case and the devices on a package just sent to you. You don't deal with the configuration. So that's one nature. And the other thing of the partner that we are discussing is actually the connectivity. And I think also Antje touched that point. The life cycle is 30 years. So the machines are not there. The sensor, I cannot even put a sensor in a machine because the next time that the machine will allow to put any sensor or wireless sensor in the machine itself will take another 15 years from now because it just bought it in 3 million euros. You have to start working with innovative partners in that space for different solutions, different sensors, connecting existing sensor with a serial connection into a 5G wireless. There are a lot of players like that in the market, innovative, and I think this is what's brilliant about the 5G, that it created some kind of a connected community. Yeah, it's a huge shared knowledge around the world. And sometimes, when I fight this discussion with 5G against Wi-Fi, yeah, at the end of the day, 5G, it's a connected industry. So many players and so many growth that start to discuss so know-how. And the knowledge is just even changing even the way enterprise is working today. And relate to the second question, if we're working with CSP, I think the way I see it, right, but Antje and Chris can connect me. I think the operators strive to have one solution approach, that they have the macro and the private network aligned, not to create a completely different branch of solution. I understand that logic, right? That logic eventually means that at the end of the day, if enterprise will pick up more and more use cases, yes, they will go to network slices because economical is much more beneficial for you. And then you don't want to change all the solution. You want to go into some kind of a holistic upgrade approach, backward compatibility, how you want to call it. So per se, of course, we have also engagement, for example, with Telefonica in Germany, and it's very interesting also Germany to work with operators, so we don't exclude it. But I see the tendency, at least from the operator, to go with at least the big one, you know, with the Ericssons and the Nokias, and leverage on their economy of scale and their leverage on their existing vendor.
Yeah, guys, effectively, you know, leveraging their traditional partnership. And maybe Sebastian, from your point of view, Alon touched about innovative partners, so innovation. How do you see, you know, CSPs or system integrator, other company who can really drive the innovation, who can really deliver on those needs? And we started seeing already some of the sort of strengths and challenges that different players have in the market. So what are your thoughts on this?
So, I mean, we have been running a couple of trials with multi-vendors or multi-vendor deployments of 5G. And I mean, what I can say is that the let's say the innovation in the NPN domain and the use cases connected to this, things like time-sensitive networking, 5G LAN, they are not coming from the big players, I'm sorry to say. They are the small European companies, because it's just software. And the just here is really, it's really just software. Everything else, because you have NFV, everything can be virtualized, containerization or container as a service comes more and more into the telco space based on the SPA vision that came in with 5G. And I see that a lot of those use cases that require technology, and of course it's just software, the smaller players have an advantage when it comes to innovation, because they just focus on this particular use case, and they might win a couple of tenders against the bigger operators just because that's the only thing the customer, the vertical needs. Now, this whole campus network that Antje referred to, and what we all know outside of Germany, is the, you know, it's not just campus networks, but those type of networks, indeed, they require a bit more, and to be economical, they need a bit more hardware. Like you need connectivity. I mean, connectivity, I mean, for me, connectivity is, of course, you need some sort of cable or radio. I don't care if it's, you know, if it's a 5G radio, if it's a 4G radio, if it's Wi-Fi. For me, it's just connectivity, because apart from this, everything else, it's just software, and it should just operate based on your needs. Even slicing, it's just, I mean, the radio is just, I mean, it's, you know, it's Murphy's Law in the end, and Moore's Law, and, you know, it's, you know, innovation very often takes place in the smaller companies first. And of course, if a certain trend takes off and it becomes valuable, the bigger players follow suit and realize this, which is, I think, you know, the market then becomes bigger and bigger, and the small players may not be able to cope with the demand because they simply don't have the manpower to really deliver on that.
Yeah, but I think also the whole industry, what you just said, is actually going in this direction with a different, it's not so much related at the moment with private networks or campus networks, but when you look at all the efforts done with the ORAN, right, to push for open interfaces and so on, the big operators, I think I can say that we are suffering from the limitation of vendors that we have, right? So there's probably good vendors. I don't want to say that they don't know their business, but it is a very limited numbers of vendors that you can choose from when you look at end-to-end systems. And right now, I think our industry is really pushing for, especially in our own interest, to have solutions where you buy smaller parts. And then exactly what you said happens. There are some companies that just offer a piece of software, but it's a very innovative piece of software. And when you have these open interfaces, then you can introduce them. And it's not necessary that one of the big vendors offers you this type. And I think we will see that also in the field of private networks right now. I think it's a very end-to-end kind of solutions we are offering at the moment, but we will see market opens up, and then we will see smaller players come in to especially the software game, right? So with the hardware, I don't know, you probably have, it's right what you said, you also need to scale, right? I mean, if I look at our 5G rollout, you need a lot of antennas. There's no way you're gonna just play with a small player, right?
And maybe just a very quick follow-up on this. So can we expect players such as Deutsche Telekom then to start partner with more niche vendors rather than just a global one?
Absolutely. In general, that's not only.
Is it for private network, short term, medium term, or long term?
No, midterm for the time being. So there is a couple of research projects, by the way. I guess Vodafone does the same. We do too, where we combine this Open RAN approach that we do at the moment for our, let's say, standard public networks with campus in this case. And with campus, it becomes, from my perspective, even more interesting, because what Sebastian said is we have also more industry requirements, and we as an operator will have difficulties to understand all these requirements, right? We here come together now on 5G for the first time, really all the industries together. We don't speak the same language. So even when we, you have a feeling you speak the same with, for instance, an energy company, then at the end you find out, oh, no, when they talk router, they mean something totally different than I do, right? So we have the chance to come together also because of small companies that know the other side's business and can help us to offer the components we are missing at the moment. And we will see a lot of development. At the moment, we're doing the first steps, right? We're doing a little RAN, a little core, a little bit edge compute, and so on. So, but that will develop. I'm pretty sure about it.
And I think it's across all three of those pillars I mentioned at the beginning. So the connectivity, the edge compute, and especially the end-to-end solutions, the digital solutions. That's where we absolutely will partner with some smaller players, definitely.
And one additional question from my end. So we started talking about O-RAN, particularly for private networks. What are the key benefits that you see O-RAN bringing to private networks? And Alon, maybe you want to take this one.
Sure. I think the name applies, right? So it's like an open RAN. That means that you can own the connectivity, but then come the principle, and I think this is about the openness, right? So if you want to pick up a niche player, from one hand, we have the 3GPP and we have the standard. Not all of them are still there. Some of them requires some time to develop them. But you need to develop the mindset of your product to be open. And when I say openness, it means that you should be agnostic to the hardware. You should be agnostic even to the radio unit at the end of the day. So you can pick up and enable this flexibility to the industry to pick up the most innovative niche player that we partner with and we can offer. And that, I think, this is one of the most highlight benefit, right, of the open RAN. It's open, everybody can join the game, everybody is in this paddle, so a lot of niche vendors, a lot of interesting vendors that are going into this game. I see them every week. I find out there is a new vendor and he's a niche player and he's developing only this sensor and this is developing an AI platform. Fascinating, yeah. But we have to adopt that concept of openness. And I'm saying even the big companies, at the end of the day, they're developing their own, Qualcomm approach, closed environment. They have to open up and enable us, right? And we say us is all the players in that game. We need to be open. We need to enable that industry to boost. Yeah, if we go with closed solution, then we actually putting some kind of a plug on that expansion. And we all have interest here, the industry, the telcos, the small player, the niche player, that as much as use case that they will develop, all of us will benefit. It's a huge market. It's not like a small market. It's not that if I grab that market share, someone else will lose. We need to open up. And I think that is like the most critical thing in Open RAN. And connecting to what Sebastian said, yes, I think creating a coalition of an ecosystem, a multi-vendor system to provide the solution Chris talked about, that is critical. Yeah, we cannot do it ourselves. We need this niche player to join the game. and we need to give them the enablement infrastructure to succeed. Yeah, and this is our responsibility.
It's absolutely key to the success of private networks overall is building that ecosystem. Yeah, we, as big and as bold as we are, we can't do it all ourselves. We can't do everything ourselves. We need partners, we need partnerships, we need an ecosystem to be successful together.
And I think we are, pretty much finished with the time, and that's a good point to end the panel. Actually, we need an ecosystem and build this together. So I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing your insights with the audience. It has been a pleasure being the moderator for this panel. So thank you very much. Please enjoy the rest of the conference, and same for the audience. Please stay tuned and engage and enjoy the rest of the conference. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.